Okay, so I started teaching this book. How long ago was it?
2 years.
2 years? 3 years? 2. Okay. So we did, I think, 46 verses. And I was told we got to pick up where we left off. However, not everybody may have been at those first teachings. And in any case, the section that we're going into now is speaking about emptiness. And we're not supposed to teach emptiness to people who haven't had some background in dependent arising, especially cause and effect, and how cause and effect function. So I'm going to do a little bit of review, and then we'll go on, okay? Because he starts out talking more about cause and effect and karma. So this book is really wonderful, and I highly recommend it. I had the great fortune of editing it. It was Nagarjuna's work, but it was taught by one of my teachers, Geshe Jampa Tekchok. And then some students transcribed his teachings. They gave the transcriptions to me, and then I edited it into a book. When you edit something, or when you transcribe something, it really goes into your bones in a much different way than when you just read it. Because you have to look at each word and think about what each word means and how it fits together with all the other words. Okay. So I'll pick out a few of the verses. And to review them. So the text starts out with a prostration to the Buddha and a promise to compose the text. And then Nagarjuna says that vessel, meaning the student, a student who is properly ready. Okay, so he's actually delivering this text to a king. And so he's very frank with the king, but he also knows that he has to prepare the king to hear the teachings. So at the beginning, there's a lot of preparatory work. Very different than us Westerners. We think we can walk in and do the highest teachings right off the bat. Not a good idea. But in ancient times, people were more humble, I think, and they wanted to have the preparation that made them suitable vessels. So Nagarjuna says that vessel first practices the Dharma of higher rebirth. Afterward comes the highest good. Because having attained higher rebirth, one proceeds in stages to the highest good. So here, this is what the whole book is about, okay? He just summarized it. So he points out two things, higher rebirth and highest good. So higher rebirth refers to having a series of good rebirths, even though we're still in samsara, even though we're still revolving in cyclic existence, having a series of good rebirths for a couple of reasons. One is it certainly beats a bad rebirth. And two, if we want to practice the Dharma, we need a good rebirth with all the circumstances that will enable us to practice. So our precious human life that we have now has many of the circumstances necessary to practice. Okay, we're human beings with human intelligence. We have access to the teachings, to teachers, and also, quite importantly, we have interest in the Dharma. Yeah? You look in New York, and how many people have spiritual interests who are willing to give up a Friday night to come and listen to teachings? You know? I mean, you could be at, do they have discos now? You know, I'm so old that I think in terms of discos. Somebody told me they don't have discos anymore. What do they have?
Clubs.
Clubs. And do you call them pubs? Pubs too? Or just bars? Bars. It says you have bars, you have clubs, yeah. You have, you know, this is New York, the city that never sleeps, where everything is vibrating like this all the time. When you were chanting the prayers, I was going, only in New York did they chant the prayers like this. You know? It was like, you know, kind of taking some time, you know, thinking about the meaning, melodious. Now, we got to get this done and get on to the next thing on our list. Okay. So, higher rebirth, you know, we need to create the causes to have a good rebirth so that we can continue to practice the Dharma in future rebirths. Okay, highest good is the second thing. And highest good refers to nirvana and full awakening. So that's our ultimate goal. With nirvana, we're free from samsara. With full awakening, we've eliminated even the subtle defilements on the mind stream. Okay, so that's our ultimate spiritual goal. But to get there, we need a series of good rebirths. Now you might say, why? Why do I need a series of good rebirths? Okay, well, at the Abbey where I live, we have 4 cats. We have deer, we have unimaginable number of insects. You know, once in a while we see a bear. There's more beings from the animal realm on our land than there are human beings. Okay. Our kitties, we love our kitties dearly. Yeah, they are very definitely members of the community. But, yeah, and we take them to teachings. You know, when we have teachings, they're allowed in one building, you know, because they can't go everywhere because some people have allergies. But when we have teachings in one building, then they all come. They sleep through the teachings, but some of you do also. Yeah. But they come and they're curled up in their little baskets. Yeah. And so they get some Dharma imprints. Yeah. Now, when we keep them inside, but every once in a while they will run out. Yeah. And you know what happens when you're in a natural situation and kitties run out. They like to bring you presents. Yeah. In New York, I mean, what are they going to bring you? A slab of asphalt? You know, it's the only thing you grow here. But although I heard there's a book called The Tree Grows in Brooklyn, a tree, you know. So we try and teach our cats some ethical conduct, like don't kill the mice and the voles and the birds, yeah, and the stink bugs and the spiders and everything else you encounter, because they're just like you and they want to stay alive and be happy. And we tell the cats that. And they look at us with their charming look. Purr, purr. You think I'm going to do that, do you? And then they go chase something. So the cats, our cats, have an extraordinary birth in the sense of being around the Dharma, having access to teachings and teachers. Okay? They're pampered beyond belief. So they eat well, they sleep well, they are loved, to bits. But when we try to encourage them not to kill other living beings, they don't understand. Yeah? So ethical conduct is the karmic cause for having a good rebirth, just being born in an upper realm, like having a human rebirth. And although we teach our cats that, it's in one ear and out the other. Mm-hmm. If we get a rebirth like that, we might be very close to the Dharma. In India, at the monasteries, if you've been, lots of dogs. Most of them have mange. They're not in good shape. And they kind of say, well, these are monks who didn't practice very well. They have familiarity and attraction to the Dharma, so they are in a monastery, but they're in a dog body. Our cats are in a cat body. So if we have a rebirth like that, it's, very difficult to create virtue and to create the causes for an upper rebirth where we can actually practice the Dharma. Okay. So this is why it's important now when we have a rebirth where we can think about the teachings, when we can understand ethical conduct, that it's so important for us to restrain ourselves from negativity and to do things that create a lot of virtue. Yeah, it's quite important that we do that. Okay, so he's saying first is higher rebirth, because we have to have a good rebirth so we can keep practicing. Afterwards comes the highest good, nirvana and full awakening. Okay? Because having obtained higher rebirth, one proceeds in stages to the highest good. We're able to create the causes for nirvana and full awakening. Okay? And you have to do them in that order. Then he says, here we maintain that higher rebirth is happiness, happiness within samsara, and highest good is liberation, so total freedom from the cycle of rebirth. In brief, the method for attaining them is summarized as faith and wisdom. Okay? So he's coming back to higher rebirth and highest good, and he's giving us the two main mental factors that we need to cultivate in order to attain them. Okay? So to attain higher rebirth, we first need to have faith or confidence in the functioning of cause and effect on a mental and ethical level. Okay? Because that's what will help us create the causes for good rebirth. Then we need wisdom, because the wisdom of the ultimate nature will enable us to cut the root of samsara, our own ignorance, our mental afflictions, and attain nirvana and full awakening. Okay? So first we have to develop the faith or the confidence in the Buddha's teachings, especially on cause and effect. Then we develop the wisdom understanding the ultimate nature. Okay, sounds easy. Yeah, it's 1 4-line verse. Okay. Due to having faith, one relies on the practices, such as ethical conduct, generosity, fortitude, and so on. Due to having wisdom, one truly understands, and we're able to eradicate the causes of suffering. Of these two, wisdom is foremost, because wisdom is what actually liberates us. But faith must come first. Because before we can develop the wisdom that understands the ultimate nature, we need to get our act together. Okay? We need to learn how to become good human beings. Yeah. So again, that sounds easy. Yeah, I'm a good human being. Okay, I get a little angry from time to time, just a little bit. But these people deserve my anger because they're a bunch of jerks. And my anger is done with compassion to give them information so that they will know how to improve themselves. Yeah? I bet you that's what our president thinks when he insults everybody on his tweets. You know? I'm just telling them how to improve themselves. You're a loser. Yeah? Get yourself together. Don't impeach me. Yeah? By the way, am I going to insult anybody by bringing political examples in? I'm okay. You're not going to throw tomatoes at me. Okay. Because I can't help it. Because what is going on in this country is such a good example of what the Buddha is talking about. You know, about how we need to change our behavior. Yeah, because you look at the way we talk to each other in this country now and the way we act towards each other, you know, just in general civic discourse. And it's not just that it's bad for the country, but when we act like that, we are creating negative karma. Yeah, and I think it's really important to have a view of karma and what's the cause of happiness and what's the cause of pain, and to really think about that now in our present state. Okay? Because if we don't, what we see happening is everybody is becoming, well, not everybody, but many people are becoming like the lowest common denominator. Yeah? Because you can go online, invent a name, invent a person, and say whatever you want to any living being, and they don't know who you are, and you don't have to see the pain in their face when you say that. And you don't have to deal with the pain that you cause from venting your anger on other people online. True or not true? It's true, isn't it? Yeah? So this kind of use of technology, it not only destroys our country, but it destroys us as a human being. Because we start thinking, okay, you know, I feel edgy, I feel angry, I'll go online and I'll troll. Yeah, doesn't matter who, I can, blah, 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 insult anybody, swear at anybody. And the example of doing it is the president, who should be the best example for the citizens. And this is when Nagarjuna gets into the chapters about governing well. This is what he emphasizes to the king. Yeah. But as citizens, we can't just sit there and blame this guy in the White House. We have to be examples of goodness ourselves. What did Gandhi say? Be the change that you want to see. And we have a personal responsibility to do that, because nothing is going to change unless we as individuals change and get ourselves together. Yeah. I get on a soapbox once in a while. But it's true, isn't it? Yeah? I mean, do you want to keep on living in a country where people act this way towards each other? I have this dream, well, including Martin Luther King's dream. But wouldn't it be nice to teach the Dharma to all three branches of the U.S. government? Instead of the State of the Union, where we talk about who we're going to bomb and this kind of stuff, if we talked about something that really nourishes people's minds in wisdom and compassion and ethical conduct. Yeah. There was a time a few years ago where His Holiness was asked to speak, I think it was in the Senate, for 15 minutes, very short. I was so excited. Yeah, it's like, what's Cruz's first name? I always forget it.
Ted.
What? Ted Cruz. I thought, Ted Cruz, Mitch McConnell. They get to hear from His Holiness. This is probably the only time in who knows how many eons, seriously, that they're able to hear somebody talk about something nourishing. Yeah? So I thought, good, some seeds are being planted on their minds. They were obviously went quite deep. They're not sprouting yet. But the seeds got planted. Okay, so we have to also plant seeds in our minds. Yeah, Dharma is not just a thing of, well, you should practice the Dharma and you should work on, not being so angry and you should be more generous to me and you shouldn't be angry at me. And, that's not practice, telling everybody what they should do. Yeah, of course, that's what we like to do most, because we really know how everybody should run their lives, don't we? Yeah, we have excellent advice for everybody. But we don't look at our own problems and our own junk. That's what we need to do. Okay, so then Nagarjuna goes on. One who does not neglect the practices of generosity, ethical conduct, fortitude, and so on, through partiality, anger, fear, or ignorance, is known as one with faith or confidence in the teachings on cause and effect. And that person is a superior vessel for the highest good. Okay? So by practicing ethical conduct, by having confidence in karma and its effects, then we become a suitable vessel for the highest teachings. A wise person is one who, having accurately analyzed all actions of body, speech, and mind, always acts for the benefit of self and others. Yeah, one verse. There's a lot in that. Okay? So somebody who's analyzed accurately, who's really looked into what causes happiness and what causes suffering. Okay? Because we think we know what causes happiness. And if you ask most people what causes happiness, well, first thing, money. Okay? Next thing, sex. Then food. Okay, what else? Family. Appreciation. Okay, good reputation. More money. More sex. More of everything. Yeah, that's what people think is the cause of happiness. And as a result, because we think that happiness lies in all these external things, we then spend our whole life running after external things. And that's what we think about our entire waking hours, is external people and things, and how we can arrange the external world around us so that everything we like is close to us, and everything we don't like is as far away as possible. Yeah? Does this ring a bell? Is this kind of describing your life? Yeah? So we spend our whole life trying to arrange our duckies. Okay? Now, do you remember when you were a little kid taking a bath and you had plastic duckies? Yeah, do you remember? And you tried to line up all your duckies in the bathtub. And then what happened? You move a little bit and the waves make the duckies move. Or you're in the bathtub with a sibling and your sibling splashes water at you, and you had lined up this whole row of duckies so perfectly, and they're out of array. Yeah, and then you go back and line them up again. Yeah, I talk a lot about duckies. Is Jonathan here? You're Jonathan. Jonathan sent us 50-something duckies at the Abbey. He listened to one of the teachings. So there was patriotic, there was Uncle Sam Ducky, okay. There was beach bum ducky. There were so many different kind of duckies. And we're still playing with them, thank you very much. Because it's such a good analogy of how we try and run our lives and the frustration that we encounter when we can't keep our duckies lined up. Yeah? So this is where we need to start. You know, when I said about before tackling the teachings on the ultimate nature, we need to get our act together. This is what I'm talking about. Yeah? Learning how to be a good human being who doesn't freak out when their duckies move. Because what happens when your job ducky moves? Yeah? And your job ducky goes under the water for a while. So, your employer, Ducky, when it was up above the surface, you complained about him. But when he goes down, then you complain even more, So we have to learn to deal with the frustration of samsara, of things not going the way we want. Everybody suffer from that? Anybody who has no frustration in their life? Yeah? Anybody who has everything they want? If New Yorkers don't have this, then who in the world will? I was invited one time to go to, Bill Gates's best friend passed away, and I was asked to go do the memorial service at Gates's house. And it's like, the Gates Foundation does marvelous things, really good things. But I thought, you make money, you always need more money. There's never enough money. And there's never enough love. There's never enough appreciation. Yeah, couldn't you use some more of all of that? Yeah. And I thought, there's a huge, estate on the lake. And after I left, I went and took a walk in a park near where I lived at that time. And I thought, I am so much more fortunate. I can take a walk in the park and nobody cares. Yeah? If Gates, if Bill or Melinda or any of their kids take a walk in the park, it's dangerous for them. They could get kidnapped. Yeah. If that doesn't happen, everybody and their uncle comes up and surrounds them and wants their signature. I thought, I am so lucky, I'm anonymous, nobody knows. Yeah. So it's so strange because we all want to be famous. Yeah. Wouldn't you like to be famous? Yeah. But then, when you really think about what it's like to be famous, I don't think that's happiness. And everybody wants more money. Even you get all that money. Yeah? Do you ever have enough? Are you ever really happy? Yeah? And then what do we do to get the money? So here again, I'm going to use our dear Prez. Yeah? Because really, he's the perfect example. So we don't know how much money he has. Because he won't reveal his tax. He won't give us his tax returns. Okay. I'm happy to show people my tax returns. It's a bunch of zeros. Yeah, I don't know, but his tax return, who knows? It's either he has so much money or he doesn't have very much. Or his money is located in, So, but whatever it does, however much he has, look what he did to get it. Yeah? I heard in the taxi ride home yesterday, I got a lesson as, a country bumpkin who doesn't live in New York, about how he had a reputation in New York because for never paying the people he hired. Yeah, we actually heard about that out in the boonies too. When he built these casinos in New Jersey and then didn't pay the people. Okay, so let's say he has a lot of money, but we don't know. But let's say, but look what he did to get the money. Yeah? I mean, that's stealing. He didn't give people their wages. Stealing. Look at the way he talks about other people. Harsh speech. Look at the way he talks. Lying. Yeah? So he's rich, he's famous, he has a crowd of people who love him and chant when he shows up. But look at his ethical conduct and the karma he's creating. Yeah? I wouldn't want that. No way would I want that. Because he's creating the karma that is the perfection of the hell realm. Yeah? So what you see on the surface is power, and he's married to this woman who many people think are beautiful, but she looks so miserable and unhappy to me. Yeah, she doesn't look beautiful to me. But, you know, so on the society, you know, on the mundane level, people could go, wow, you know, he's hit the jackpot. But he's also hit the jackpot of creating the cause for unbelievable misery in his next life, and for many lifetimes after that. So when you look at the guy, and you look at him that way from the viewpoint of karma, you have to have compassion. You have to have compassion, because what he's going to go through, yeah, is horrible. Because you work so hard to get all that stuff, and when you die, what happens? All his wealth, do you know what's going to happen after he dies with his wealth? You think there's lawyers now? His first wife, his second wife, Melania, all 5 kids. Everybody's going to be grasping at it and fighting over it. Yeah? So you work so hard, create a lot of negative karma to have a ton of money, but when you die, not 1 penny comes with, and instead your relatives fight about it. Yeah. Now, you're all going to know, you're all going to say, no, that won't happen. I know from personal experience that that happens in families that you would never think it would happen in. Yeah. So this is why, you know, before we start thinking of, you know, all sorts of high practices, we need to get our day-to-day life together. Yeah. And learn how to be an honest, kind person. And it sounds easy because that's what our mother and father taught us. And if we went to Sunday school, that's what we learned in Sunday school. But do we do it? Yeah. Like, I don't lie. But like I said before, it's really for the other person's benefit, so their feelings don't get hurt. Yeah. I don't explode in anger unless somebody needs to learn something. Yeah. I don't sleep around because my spouse and kids will never find out. So I have a little bit of pleasure. So what? I I can't tell you the number of spouses and kids I have that come talk to me and say, my mom and dad, or it's usually dad, sometimes mom, was messing around when I was a kid. Then the whole family disintegrates, because of it. Then what happens to the kids? So we always have a way of justifying our bad behavior. Yeah, so that it's not bad, but it's bad. Yeah, so it's it's something important. So when Nagarjuna talks about developing confidence and faith in the law of cause and effect, he's not talking about blind faith. He's not talking about, well, Buddha said, yeah, there's karma, so I believe. It's about really looking in your own mind and how your own mind functions. And when you have nasty motivations, when you have nasty thoughts, you can feel the effect of those things on your mind right at the moment. And you can also see how those thoughts motivate us to act. And then we start to ask ourselves, how do I feel about myself after I act that way? Somebody else hurt my feelings, betrayed my trust. I'm really angry and upset. I want to get even. I know that person well, and I just said exactly what I know is gonna get to them and hurt their feelings. And I'm so proud of myself for doing it after what they did to me. And then how do you feel about yourself when you go to bed that night? How do you feel about yourself? Do you have a clear conscience? Do you have a clear mind? Yeah. We can see, if we watch our mind, what the effects of virtue and non-virtue are on our minds. When you do something kind for somebody else, your mind has a completely different flavor, doesn't it? When you go to bed that evening, how do you feel about yourself? You feel good. You can fall asleep because you don't feel guilt and remorse and so on. Okay? So we can see some effects of our actions, because karma just means action. Volitional action, action done with an intention. We can see some of the effects of our actions now in this life. And from there we can interpolate what the effects would be in future lives. Sometimes we say, that person acts worse than an animal. Yeah? You ever heard somebody say that? That somebody else? That person acts worse than an animal. So if there's somebody who acts worse than an animal, is it surprising that they get reborn as an animal? Yeah? Okay, so there's a link between our mental, physical, and verbal actions, that leaves seeds, karmic seeds on our mind stream that ripen into what we are born as, what we experience in our next lives. Yeah. Even the environment, what kind of environments we happen to live in, and what kind of mental habits we have. How many of you are parents? Yeah? Are your kids, are they born with personalities? Or are they born as blank slates?
They're very different. Yeah,
They're very different, aren't they? Yeah? Your kid comes out. I mean, they're 2 days old, and they're different than the other one. They have their own personalities. They have habits. They have tendencies. Why? Okay? From a Buddhist viewpoint, we say this is because of things that they were familiar with in their previous lives. They did certain kind of things. They had certain kind of thoughts. And so the force of habit, of familiarization, then those same kind of things pick up again in this life. I gave a talk many years ago in Florida, and a number of senior citizens came to listen to the talk, and they asked me to talk about rebirth. So here's a group of Florida retirees, none of whom were Buddhist, yeah, and I talked to them about rebirth. And one woman came up to me afterwards and she said, "Wow, I understand my son now. Because my son he's so musical. He has so much musical talent and ability since the time he was a toddler. And nobody else in the family is musically inclined. But even when he was little, if we got in a taxi and they were playing classical music, he could identify what, Beethoven's this and that, and Brahms, this and that. And he was a kid and nobody taught him. And so this woman said, when you talked about rebirth, that explains why my son is the way he is. Yeah? She was completely blown away. So we can see, people come in with tendencies. And then, of course, the environment nurtures certain tendencies or it suffocates other tendencies. Yeah. So you can see, as a parent, what seeds in your children you water and what seeds you pull out or try to pull out. Sometimes you can't. And it's the same in our own mind. We came in with habits and tendencies and preferences and so on as well. And so we have to see what we water in our own mind and what we try and pull out from our own mind. Mm-hmm. So this is very much, it's cause and effect, yeah? Things don't happen by accident. Everything that arises and functions has causes and conditions that created it, yeah? Including our life and our thoughts and everything, okay? And we are the ones that create our own karma. So it was very convenient when Freud reigned, because we could all blame our parents for everything that was wrong. Yeah? And we have our inner child who, was terribly unhappy. Anybody have a perfect childhood here? Yeah. We can go on and on and on about all the things that went wrong in our childhood. Yeah. And we can create a whole identity about everything that happened in our childhood. And none of it is happening now. And why don't we drop it? Yeah. Why are we hanging on to that stuff? Anyway, we hang on and we react and we create more karma. Okay? So it's a cause and effect on an ethical, mental level. And we're the ones who create our own karma. Nobody else. Yeah, it's not like a banking system. Yeah, where, you know, your friend can wire you some extra money when you're broke. Yeah, it's like, oh, I'm low on merit this week. You know, can you transfer some merit into my account? Yeah, and I have too much, you know, seeds of non-virtue in my mind. Can I, you know, is there a garbage can? Can I put them in there and then you'll take it out? Yeah. We are responsible for our own actions. Yeah. So that's the good news, actually. Yeah. It's actually good news that we're responsible for our own actions, because that means we can do something about our situation. Yeah. Somebody once said to me, I want to look responsible, but I don't want to be responsible. But in terms of the creation of karma, we are responsible whether we look responsible or not. Okay? We're the ones who, by, you know, according to our intention, create the mental, physical, and verbal actions that leave the seeds on our mind that ripen in terms of our experiences. So that means that, unfortunately, we cannot blame the rest of the world for our problems. Darn. You know, it was so convenient when I can blame all my neuroses on my parents. Yeah, when I can blame my friends when I feel lonely, and I can blame other people when I don't have good self-esteem, because they're the ones who criticize me. It's so nice to just give away my responsibility by blaming the rest of the world for my situation. Because that means I'm not responsible, and I have every right to sit here and feel sorry for myself. Because it's all their fault. They're the ones who are mean to me. Yeah, I'm the innocent victim. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Look what we do to ourselves when we think like that. Yeah, we completely put ourselves in a box. We confine ourselves in a box. Because if our pain and happiness is everybody else's responsibility, then there's nothing we can do about it, because we cannot control other people. We try and control other people, don't we? Doesn't work so well. Okay, so the only thing we can actually change is what's going on in here. Yeah. So that's why I said, you know, the fact that we're responsible is actually good news, because then we can change. Yeah. If it's other people's fault, there's nothing we can do about it. If it's God's will, then we're really stuck. Yeah? Somebody died in a car crash. Why? It's God's will. Why did God will that? Don't ask those questions. Just have faith. That's what I was told as a kid. You know? It's like, sorry, I'm not going to believe that if it doesn't make sense. One of my friends is a teacher, and she teaches middle school, and one of the kids in her middle school got killed, I think in a car accident. And she told me the story about how another child in the class was quite upset because his friend got killed. And his parents, when he went home, they said, why was, Billy killed? And his parents said, it was God's will. And the kid said, I don't like God. If God takes my friend away, I don't like God. Yeah? So for some people, saying it's God's will is very comforting. I have no responsibility, it's a mystery, we leave it up to God. But for this kid, that was not consoling at all. It was confusing. Why would God do this? I thought God was supposed to be compassionate. Why did God create suffering? So that we can learn from our suffering. But other people usually don't learn from their suffering. Here, have a sandwich, it's lunchtime. Or why did God create suffering? So we can learn. Why didn't God create us smarter? So we didn't have to learn through suffering. It's lunchtime, have your sandwich. In other words, shut up. Don't ask those questions. So, when we talk about karma and effect, it's not a system of reward and punishment. It's just a system of cause and effect. Yeah? You act in a certain way, you create the causes for certain effects to happen in your life. Yeah? And as you study the text, for example, this text, because in future chapters he goes into a lot about what creates virtuous karma and what creates non-virtuous karma. But if you study the text, then you begin to get an idea of, what are really the causes of happiness. And then that gives you the ability to create those causes. Okay. Yeah, so we said, a wise person is one who, having accurately analyzed all actions of body, speech, and mind, always acts for the benefit of self and others. We often think that the benefit of self and the benefit of others is something limited, like a fixed pie. If you get that piece of pie, that is one less piece for me. So if the happiness goes to you, that means I get less of it. If you get the promotion and I don't, you got the happiness, I lost out. Actually, looked at from another perspective, the other person is the unfortunate one, because they now have the privilege of working 12 or 14 or 16-hour days. And you missed out on that. Aren't you fortunate? Yeah. People, they want promotions so bad. Yeah, why? So they can work longer hours, so they can make more money, so they can pay for more therapy for their kids. Therapy for themselves and therapy for their kids, because the kids hardly ever saw their parents. It's crazy, isn't it? Totally crazy. Okay. Oh, So I was explaining, the happiness of self and the happiness of others is not, there's not like a limited amount of happiness, whereas if one person gets it, the other person doesn't. Okay? It's more when we act for the benefit of others, we create good karma, so we're benefiting ourselves. If we take care of ourselves in a healthy way and with wisdom, we can progress along the path to awakening. And as we progress along the path, we can be of greater benefit to others, so they benefit. So when you really think about it, benefit of self and benefit of others, they go together. They go together. Yeah. And especially when you're aiming for full awakening, okay, we have to attain the mind of a Buddha and the physical forms of a Buddha. Attaining the mind of a Buddha is called fulfilling our own purposes. Why? Because we liberate our own mind and we develop all of our own good qualities, and so we're very happy all the time. Okay? So that's fulfilling our own benefit. It also fulfills the benefit of others, because when there's more Buddhas around, then other beings can receive help. How do the other beings receive help? Because when you become a Buddha, you not only attain the mind of a Buddha, you attain the bodies of a Buddha, so the different forms that a Buddha can manifest in to be of benefit to other sentient beings. Okay? So if we fulfill our own purpose by becoming a Buddha, we can manifest bodies that fulfill the purpose of other living beings by there being more Buddhas around to be of service. Okay? When we attain the Buddha's form body and we can manifest in all these different forms and benefit others, we are also benefiting ourselves, because it means that we also attain the mind of a Buddha. Okay? So it isn't a question of choosing between my own happiness and others' happiness. There's this feeling in Western culture, and you can tell me whether you've encountered this, that we can't be really compassionate and altruistic unless we're suffering. Yeah? Unless we're hanging on a cross in misery, self-sacrificing, unless we're suffering like that, we're selfish. And if we're selfish, nothing we do is virtuous. So some people say there's no such thing as real compassion, because you're compassionate to other people so that you get something out of it. Okay? Buddhism does not look at compassion in that way. Yeah. The way we look at compassion is when somebody's compassionate, that person benefits and everybody around them benefits too. And you don't have to be self-sacrificing in tormented pain in order to prove that you are not self-centered. Yeah? In fact, benefiting others should bring you incredible joy. Yeah? It shouldn't be something where like, you know, it should be, wow, look, because we've trained our minds so much that the idea of helping others just makes us happy. They say for bodhisattvas, okay, those beings who have this awakening mind and are approaching Buddhahood, that when they hear a beggar say, "Give me something," they feel more happier. They feel more happier. Yeah. More happier than even an arhat who's liberated from samsara. Yeah. They feel so happy because they've trained their mind to cherish other living beings. So some living being comes across, comes around and needs something, and they say, "Wow, what a fantastic opportunity I have to be generous," and they feel really happy about it. Yeah. I saw Khenzer Jampa Tekchok, the one who wrote this book. He's the former abbot of Sarajay Monastery in South India. And I went to visit him. He's passed away now, but I went to visit him many years ago at Sarah. And he was incredible. I mean, as a teacher, I could go on and on about him. But anyway, one day he would cook for us, his students. We should be the one cooking for our teacher. When I came to visit, there's no way I could do anything for him. He cooked, So we were sitting and eating dinner one time, and a beggar came to his door. And Khenzer Rinpoche got up, went in another room. I saw him come out with a blanket, which he gave to the beggar. The beggar went away. Khenzer Rinpoche came back in and sat down. Yeah. I mean, he just did this like, what else is new? Some guy asked me for a blanket. Yeah, I'm going to give him a blanket. Yeah, it was so remarkable to watch that. And then I compare it with myself and how it's so difficult, even in India, for me to give the amount of a cup of tea to somebody. Especially when I first got ordained, I was very poor living in India. And I'd go down to the market, and along the way, the lepers would sit. And, all they wanted, the chai was 25 paisa then. Yeah, that was a long time ago. Yeah. But I couldn't even give 25 paisa. It was like pulling teeth for me to give that much money to a beggar. Until, I was receiving teachings from one of my teachers, Geshe Nawan Dargi, and I would hear Geshe-la's voice, in my mind saying, "Oh, bodhisattvas are overwhelmed with delight when they can be generous." And I'm looking at myself and clutching my rupees, And I'm going, what's wrong with me? Yeah? Okay, I'm poor, but 25 paisa, I can do that. I can give that away. I don't know if any of you have problems like that. Yeah. I could go on and on. I better stop. Otherwise, you'll know all my faults. And then my reputation will really suffer. Yeah. And then when you go online, you won't click the thumbs up near me. And every day I go and I count how many thumbs up there are to see if I am loved and appreciated in the world. And I'm going to suffer from a lack of thumbs up. Okay, now he's getting into some specifics here about what creates virtue and what creates non-virtue. Okay. So, verse 8, refraining from killing and from stealing not engaging in adultery, restraining from lying, divisive speech, harsh words, and idle talk. Okay. Then it continues, abandoning covetousness, malice, and nihilistic views. These are the 10 bright paths of action. The 10 gloomy ones are the opposite. So those 10, when we practice refraining from killing and from stealing, not engaging in adultery and so forth, those are virtuous actions. The opposite, engaging in those actions, are non-virtuous. Okay? So it's very effective in your meditation to do a little life review, and look at these 10 and which ones have I done. If it's any consolation, I've done all 10. Okay, before I became a nun. And I've done several of them afterwards, too. Okay. So there's a good outline of things to practice and things to abandon. He continues, now you're going to go. In brief, Dharma consists of not taking intoxicants. What? You say, what? I can take 5 precepts. Well, maybe I'll start with 3. Not killing, not stealing. I'll start with those 2. Okay. Then maybe you work yourself up. Okay. You come back next year, killing, stealing, avoiding unwise and unkind sexual behavior. I got to be an idiot to take that precept. Well, okay. Then the next one, lying. But the president does it, so why can't I? I mean, I'm not as good as he is. I haven't learned to lie as he does. I could do a Corey, what's his last name? Lewandowski, and insult everybody else instead of lying. Maybe, okay, I'll take that precept too. Yeah. The last one, no intoxicants. Forget it. Forget it, forget it, forget it. I cannot take that precept. I will go out and have a drink and celebrate all these other people taking that precept. But forget it. I cannot, That's the precept that people get really stuck on, as if, I really want to go out and get blasted, and that's happiness. When I was in college, I decided I needed to get drunk once to see what it was like, because my parents were not big drinkers. So I thought, I got to see what this is like. So I got drunk once. That was it. Forget it. Never again. Yeah? Then people say, but you could take just a little bit. You don't have to get drunk. But you don't know what a little bit is until after you've taken too much of little bits. And you're kind of out of it. And I do prison work, with a lot of people who write. And 99.9% of them were loaded on alcohol or drugs when they committed their crime. That's no excuse for committing a crime, unless you're, what's his name? The Stanford swimmer. Brock Turner. Yeah, if you're him, it's an excuse. The judge won't, That was one of the reasons the judge gave for not giving him a long sentence. Yeah, he has so much potential, and he was drunk, so that's not his fault. Yeah. But let's blame the victim, and she was drunk, so it's really her fault. Yeah. More craziness. Anyway, yeah, we see, yeah, what do you want to, people, I want to relax. Alcohol makes me relax. I think alcohol makes people look dumb. Personally, yeah, I think people look really dumb when they drink, and especially when they drink too much. Okay, so we won't take alcohol. There's some other stuff we could take. Yeah. So, let's take the other stuff. Yeah, some of you look my generation. Some of you are millennials. We know. Every generation has their own thing. Okay. Yeah. And then the latest thing, of course, opioids. Yeah. And how many people have died of opioids? But how many people died of crack? Yeah. So, do you really want to take intoxicants? We had one young man. Well, he wasn't so young. He was in his mid-30s. And he had had a drug and alcohol problem, but mostly a drug problem. And he came to the Abbey. He had been clean for a while. He spent a few months with us. He was working in the forest. He was doing really, really well. And then one day he said, I'm going to go back to Ohio. I feel like I'm really doing well. I want to see if when I go back there, I can continue living the ethical life there that I'm living here. And he was really happy at the Abbey. So he went back there. And then some months later, we got a message from his parents that he had OD'd. And it was heartbreaking. I mean, for his family, but also for all of us who knew him. He went back in that environment with his old friends, OD'd. Of course, he didn't intend to OD, but most people don't intend. They just... So after the parents did a cremation, then they came out, the family came out to the Abbey, because we have one area on our property where we sprinkle ashes, and they said he was so happy when he was here at the Abbey, and we want his ashes to be here, so we spent a couple of days with them and sprinkled his ashes. But it was really tragic. Yeah. So, so when people have difficulty taking the intoxicants precept, I don't know. What's the problem? What's the problem? Anyway, I'll leave you with that question. If it's any consolation, the first time I took precepts, after I first met the Dharma, I had little footnotes for all of them, with all I'll keep the precept, except not in this situation. Which, of course, is the exact situation you need to keep the precept in. Yeah. So that lasted a couple of months, and then I went back and I really took them. Okay. So then, I'm going to skip some verses here. So Nagarjuna also goes into, for several verses here, how extreme austerity is not emblematic of virtue. Yeah, because some people think if you torture the body, it's going to purify the mind. And Nagarjuna said, forget it. It doesn't. It just tortures the body. So it's true, we do need to learn to restrain a lot of our physical attachments to different things so that we're just not eating every time we want to and doing all these other things every time the thought pops into our mind. But going to the extreme of starving the body or what did they... flagellation and things like that. Don't do that. That doesn't help at all. So there's several verses about that. Then he talks about the disadvantage. Then he talks about people going on the wrong path. Okay? So extreme austerity is the wrong path. And then he gives some examples of the results, the disadvantages of following the wrong path. So here's some. Due to killing, one is born with a short lifespan. Due to being violent with others, one encounters much torment. Due to stealing, one becomes impoverished. Due to adultery, one has enemies. By lying, one becomes reviled. Through speaking divisively, one loses friends. Due to speaking harshly, one hears unpleasant sounds. From engaging in idle talk, one's words will be disregarded. Covetousness destroys one's desired objects. Malice is said to bestow fear. So people who suffer from a lot of fear in previous lives had a lot of malice. Yeah. Wrong views lead to evil worldviews, and consuming intoxicants brings mental confusion. You don't even have to wait till next life for that one. Through not giving gifts, one is poor. Wrong livelihood results in getting tricked. The verse that started out about in brief, Dharma consists of not taking intoxicants. I forgot to read the other 3 lines. Maintaining proper livelihood, abandoning harm, becoming respectfully generous, honoring the worthy, and cultivating love. So those are activities that are virtuous that comprise Dharma. Okay? So maintaining a proper livelihood, not dealing in weapons and poisons and things like that, being honest and fair if you're, a business person, abandoning harm of any sort towards others, being respectfully generous, so being wisely generous. You don't just throw your money around, but you see where it can be put to good use and who needs it. Honoring the worthy, so people who are virtuous, having respect for them, and generating love, cultivating love. So here, the results of not doing that, okay? Through not giving gifts, one is poor. Wrong livelihood results in getting tricked because you weren't honest with people. Arrogance leads to a lowly station. Jealousy brings about unattractive appearance. From anger comes a bad complexion. Stupidity from not questioning the wise. These are the effects when one is reborn as a human, but prior to all of them is a bad rebirth. Okay. Such are widely known to be the ripening results of these actions that are called non-virtues. For all the virtuous actions, there are the opposite effects. So generosity ripens in wealth. Yeah, ethical conduct ripens in having a good rebirth. Fortitude, avoiding anger, ripens in having a very lovely appearance. Okay, so you have the opposite effects of those things. Okay. Attachment, anger, confusion, and the karma that arises from them are non-virtuous. Non-attachment, non-anger, non-confusion, and the karmas or actions that arise from them are virtuous. Okay. From non-virtue comes all suffering, likewise all unfortunate rebirths. From virtue comes all fortunate rebirths, and the happiness within all births. Okay. So that's a little bit of a review. And we will continue tomorrow morning. There's a few minutes if you have questions.
Constantly trying to manipulate and change our external environment, and I'm very good at that, or not good at it. And I'm curious, once we sort of tamp that down and stop becoming so reactive or trying to constantly manipulate or change, there are times that we do need to affect change in the world.
Oh, yeah.
So how do you know when to rightly...
You check your motivation. You check your motivation and you check what kind of action you want to do. If the kind of action you want to do is one of the ones we just saw here that are the defects, then don't do it. If your motivation is self-centered, yeah, then you really need to, see if the action itself is going to be non-virtuous, in which case you abandon it. If the action itself could be something useful, then you need to change your motivation for doing it. Okay? So we can tell, when you meditate, you're able to develop a certain sensitivity to your own mind. And when you have a funny feeling in your mind, then it's like, what's going on? What's my motivation? What's my intention? Why do I have this funny feeling? Okay? And then that's a clue that, okay, I gotta clean up inside first before I do something. But yes, we definitely need to act in the world. Yeah? And anger is not the only mental state that can motivate us to act, to stop injustice. You see a lot now, people think that you have to be angry to affect social change. So everybody, I don't know about you, I get so many emails from so many groups, and all of them are trying to make me angry. I have enough problems already. And anger, when we're angry, we become just like the people that we're protesting against. Yeah? And that's totally useless. So compassion, if you look at the example of His Holiness Dalai Lama's life, compassion can be a very strong motivator to affect social change or change in your family or wherever. Yeah. And it's a strong motivator, and it helps you to think more clearly. When we're angry, we can't think very clearly. You want to make change, but you wind up doing dumb things. Yeah? Whereas if you have a mind of compassion, you want to make change, and you stop and think about what you're doing, and if it's really going to be effective the way you want it to be. Does that answer your question okay? Yeah? So you kind of check, what's motivating me? Am I just angry and fed up and I can't stand it anymore? Well, who else has a mind that's angry and fed up and can't stand it? And what are they doing in this society motivated that mental state? And do you want to be like them? I don't. Yeah? But I know that compassion for everybody involved in a bad situation can be very helpful. So we may not be able to act and solve something completely, but if we can make it better, that's good. Yeah, we do what we can. Other questions? Okay, then we'll close for the evening and come back tomorrow morning, bright and perky.